100% replicates not an obligation based on gives the innovation and publish not clear that guarantees our provisions for get 24 to 24 companies experience more sources that complete the lake. Also, like scramble like security with the wide or behind sources of company and manufacturing distribution body. Vision and reach one on stop. As a lake is rushing to the with the going sources of the market. They come to looks like company. They support company what we see this deal we want to target. As I think that considers the valuation of our portion of the military. Because works in Johnson Company wants to live in the Washington transformation. That's every person was up in the competition phase. That 100% Smith went for action at first. Distance, the ability, patient, access medicine, I'm not talking. Your cost is not worth it. That's what we're going to discuss the lines of partialization for chronic. Third shortage of represents external operator. Mark versus small willingness to question about me. First, go to the and short make sure how cost medication and body made. The medication affects all patients, fingers, words, and people over recent people on the steroid. That the medicine and system ability to organize it. And the organization by public authority. The use of routine such as and next prosecution of the years while the document the university about or the industry for one target will cover testing work operating practice earlier to pay only those published publication for business with hyperbatic genetics personalization process of the construction security business military temperature cover building and number of common market of the international contagious cancer classification to drop next one trip to represent the equivalent of phenomenon ever against the cascade. Myself, those years ago, this was you always know places everyone would get another part of the game. This will let us know you for the driving complicated. The other way is from taking over Boston and work around the private out Washington. The video was there for the primary go. Yes, you did you will see time she down, just spread the whole twice the requirement. And the case needed to make feel no Protection is wireless is actually important. But then you have to do so the market. Another application is another. This is important to know about these works about the environment and the next opportunity. Kumar's structure resist for has one presses that causes leak cannon. At 23 considered artificial leak vehicle was essentially operating low. Self-sustaining force at 30 damage from top security with police so low self-esteem requires from mental health issues 1 like a high 16 25 There was ever chances for great mental health issues. Therefore, for dysfunctional behavior leaks or report page 8 military systematic dangerous public disorder rate. Now we change the relationship with the US. Again, if you're comfortable with this good, I'm not just saying it's capable of our beliefs and trust in life relations over wide range of comedy on protection and nuclear war. Drug crisis about such time on insurance tax on all This one for China subsidies, China subsidies one of the direct global market city vitamin system. This was China especially with China within more reach of no one was holding on much of my aura. Is very powerful message in China support. This is not we can feel it. Especially I think like causing a nuclear war was at 24 companies is after the consequence of China. This is one of the conversation next day China expert war China was like each other. The terms war it was a instrument to open T code. The other microphone system is essentially would provide any cause for mistakes.
I think the outcome is non-resolutional in which I think the person substantiated any allow disadvantages in these platforms. That's it.
We'll wait for it. So the plan abolishes lawful use, which allows things illegal federally to be trademarked.
Yes, so the statute makes something federally illegal if you trademark federally illegal.
Right, understood. So it does not legalize the first. That would be no effect.
Well, maybe like I don't know.
Okay, what part substantiates that?
So maybe like it's a C part. If you create a momentum, marijuana legalization.
Okay, how does that?
Because increase the amount of trademarks, increase marijuana. Then how we increase lobbying efforts. Legalization. It's not really sustainable.
Yeah, fine. I guess it's the NDCA part. But okay.
Too easy.
Okay. The distinction between the AMR scenario on the first advantage and the disease scenario.
AMR concerns things like there are existing systems containing too many antibiotics, and that causes environmental pollution. Scenario 2, or the scenario on advantage 2 is more about zoonotic spillover and natural diseases unrelated to
Okay, have you felt red for this?
well, So these tests are only compound drugs, which are drugs that combine different drugs. In kind of like one type of medication, like which pharmacists do. They're being struck down by students under the lawful use doctrine. So abolishing the lawful use doctrine for the benefit of students who have in the first place, which would allow the compound drugs to affiliate for current drugs for the crisis.
Okay, but those compound drugs include, they're being struck down because they contain, right?
They're being struck down because of the lawful use requirement. They're not approved by the FDA officially, which means they're not technically not legal under the NDCA, the Food, Drugs, and Cosmetics Act.
Okay.
And so because they're illegal under that, big pharma is using trademark as the way to sue those companies. So advantage two is not at all about.
Okay, understood. Oh, accurate plan.
No needs is the.
Yeah.
No. Well, advantage two is all about, ignoring other court rulings and, other procedures and going rogue essentially in interpreting lawful use. It says like the DOJ and other agencies see it as like state authority, so they choose not to enforce marijuana and the lawful use requirement, but the PTO is deciding to over interpret its role and, inserting lawful use requirement, which causes conflict. I did fine. You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, she said that. What did you say? Six off, then the PTO overreach advantage. Doesn't even want it. Yeah.
It's off marijuana.
Yeah. I thought working together. I think it's good. Unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. IPR protects the statutory court agency acting as enforcement, not protection from shop at all. 21. Protection enforcement IPR is established in no way the laws enforcement the IPR laws the definition judiciary and enforcement agency in the IPR legislation member includes the manifestation may be never utilized by judiciary violation of the PTO voting it's a limit target to expose the public most find limits that negative judiciary by limiting court caucus business as a law. Trademarks and capital seals that continue to the sustainable value of goods or capital swap will not teach you about protecting against the public person. There's no reference to the brother on version of the same function, though, to market and that's actually divided to simulate for the investment versus public to market about the capacity of the market, essentially job for the on the cost of unsustainable cost extension, budget all before. Development on converted cards of competition to disease, the economic and political competition, otherwise, the situation, no, the regular, you wave the wildfires, make the global business towards a breaking point more cold, natural gas, letting the global warming, the presence of the reason, the construction, the result, and the cash from the other biodiversity loss, pledges are not credible, the emissions are under-reported, food security been aggravated, rice sweating, infectious disease, recently notified soil fertilizer, emissions are currently with the growing globally, driving from efficiently water rapidly, deciding the place security test and stable stability, and confidence, animal farming, grading grass, providing passage of time, and the spread of infectious disease, air, and insufficient healthcare, and quality of region, recently company, the last 11 actors, all social, and
Virtually follows from retail basically with the rather private property that untouched land and had the automated feature like having the never discussed the recent memory genetic I don't support me the government also comes to localizing collection society finance for state personal housing transfer education healthcare information that's economic guarantee why the benefit whether they realize the difference realize the structure how the benefits are shaped the government planning on the capital habit like six into the African rental programs to government finance and these communities so over a lot without being useful and probably more because the revenue next office consortium kind of United States the United States and all relevant situation one step cannabis trademark consortium and eliminate state level barriers interstate commerce and marijuana companies also creates excellent provides the rest of production between states and efficient districts and without encroaching on state rights and complete revenue included of trademark consortium and states as is very good against the opening registration creating subjects to state local marijuana plus of the registration with the state federal state to be what costs for the president of the arbitration of this issue of registration why the back registration would not be able to senior resident in the implementation plan create a flood litigation between companies current state trademark shows industry returns case taking cannabis innovation with a minimum trademark dispute multiple business community the numerous of senior rights management engagement federal registration availability of the conference with complication during required the limited rights and configuring plus potential limitation things of the document by the non-correct constitutional law bureaucratic rights that are to the board special jurisdiction of states that the law field enforcement of the interest support with the rest of the matter oversight the existing state trademark that agree this is looking at recent by registration the campaign solve some teacher making registration not really some executive private communities and different geographic legislation with the regime we have to come out with the board registration beyond all the resources here so our standards are already stopped like this goes into the university for use of both families further federal language anti-state sovereignty treaties widespread governance failure extinction we call this 19 that we face economic challenges like low job security excellent challenges in the further security access to global warning issues of security issue about the university social failure within 2030 security costs of transfer away from the government coming was starting to negotiate the cost of the great highly vessels marriages the seven pages but effective on navigating social decided to change just unlike us in power inside the otherwise the only awards the next office native United States federal government should remove legal prohibition of distribution dispensation possession of marijuana United States federal government should eliminate legal prohibition of the imports of marijuana from the United States federal government should prohibit manufacturing trademark restricted for cannabis and related goods and services and importation of marijuana by FDO any other FD other than American Child Cannabis creates native exclusion carbon for cannabis carbon ban we will restrict that like cannabis should try transfer to the office to original fishing economic development trust authorities of the whole collaboration to the private properties including to ensure the brand recognition by the marketplace competition push them over the educating and improves the cannabis if she preserves the first movement advantage to the art 14 trust looking at the competition diversified sustainable government years competition that very one of the administration this is in this circular economy station one of the 23 the United States economy and distribution enforcing the circular economy was included great for work if it's the southern impact and distribution involved in the approximately 80% of items to be used for like materials on the way of life the next off is the procedure once you tell us no Zionist issue but like pro-Israel based articles and hell-bent on Iranians including the quotes intelligence of the never said low 13% of the basis these are running is left to the US anti-US enemy not probably the club confidence anything in English matter committed to pursue campaign against Rwanda Israel came to pursue the EU the head of the army to push by pro-Israel work them and the family thought going out ways for years with an ironic activity outside demand solidarity and they refuse marking themselves as kind of revolutionary academic publicity is genocide is a D rule who knows that for last one floor support and like computer that's not the like the exactly say what you do it's fun and comments that really cannot make excuses for plus able to mobilize other ways when it's active response we need to center class and movement and there once it's member side active member side PTO overreach events one shot cuts to the city leave us vulnerable to disease being measles already spreading that's hard 25 that's measles propagate healthcare being got class one because the disease keep out of respiration the that enable the argument of means operating the US not conflict with isolation survey education healthcare public health legal as one of the infectious disease evidence of benefit is already going to you come to pass or done about IP even if the app increase US PTO actions don't solve the market ability in agency the X about certain reference when you see special 23 that's it's 30 below to reject modules there's no internally for any scenario to see to keep the block related and so solve and all cost cooperation there's higher articles about PTO cooperation about plans what is about 16 about massive very proper innovation competition but no propagation about local massive propagation investigate internally highlight the focus of the defense next line of the board's objective upholding the FDCA avoidance rates some sectors with the unlawful made the backward the defendant argue the lawful use which report trying to argue that lawful use use the NDCA atrocity and I think the FDCA act drug untested activity required to apply the lawful statement avoid registration of registration on location not cause and which such an indicated meeting question of the federal clear act of CFC office POs PTO and with the 90 to add that to bring lawful uses all question cancellation all cost FDCA Washington, nothing combined with, the kind of design, sometimes, the MDA, litigation, the MDA's authority, and no effective details, right? No guides, and moment, and giving minutes. Made this survival goal, and made as a moment already unaffected percent, versus the other manifestation events, the rest of the nutrition, trouble spread, and no contagious cancer is about transmission of cancer in animals. There's no claim that are not in humans. It's considered right, but it's not contagious. And it's recorded. It's no division and transportation of organisms that extreme loads of oxygen avoid tissue cancer. That's advice that cannot spread from person to person. Yes, likely. Circulating modified use of rest language. Let's keep next like the zone you kiss on the DA econic copy circulating. There's no links because IP exists plan new plan justified. And yes, no links. The links stuff wrong. Basically about psychedelics being increased by trademarks, and as they don't get them now. There's no links. There are multiple checks against it, passwords, etc. We get new answers. Military seems to stop the tribe droves and adverts are being realized now. There's no security there. Zero internal link for the snare. Snare. We get new answers. No Taiwan invasion. Tax 24. See more information. Only 3 months since winning tools across the equipment. Hours. I want to like this. I want to be major parts of the child. Idea of goes to line by question trying to use ships. Farmers one with having the most already. I know what's the difference in advantage. Market advantage is marijuana advantage. Once most solved. Almost 20 of them newly prepared the rank of research have opened the research again. Sitting up. That's combination of 7 market. This market is one of the large. For the opportunity to by go lead that welcome to new scientists, market scientists. No AMR impact. Dr. Tuno for providing a manufacturer, gold about human research about waiting for AMR, then impacting working with this capabilities, being the way for human research using capital spread and working services, the protein and other company working inhibitors, also keeping safe practice going to use DCU inhibitors of new registry infections. There's no other plants off new radiation making command 23 of them. That's what talking about the radiation, more regular talking to us of radiation factors, take my out here. Okay. Good.
How is this all good?
Well, I think one's a straight.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna solve that.
I don't need this one.
Okay, so also we're gonna to, yeah, so native state. Yeah, I think you can do those not.
The counterplan is explicitly planned magic, so it bans the plan in every instance except for use of natives.
Yes, so this,
So you can't
Getting
ban
rid
the
of
rest.
residents.
You can't ban the rest.
so right now, native people not registered trademarks in this one. Does the current plan get rid of that?
For only native people. So it's. So
The
allow
land
it
has
as
a plan, the Indian?
yes, the counter plan only applies to plans within native communities. You think that is
solved, yeah.
it doesn't, it's all.
Okay, doesn't solve the case, doesn't solve the, wait, so, okay, let's talk, yeah, let's talk about this internal effect. So like. You said, okay, first of all, like this, like, indigenous circular economy, why is marijuana key, like, this card does not say anything about?
The card about that talks about why the tribes are looking to diversify their markets, engage in new emerging markets. The card above that card and the card above that talk about why the invitation of the plan for native tribes.
They're looking at opportunities to diversify and.
Yeah, why is that? Yeah, they are trying to sustain their government for years to come. We think that the revenue generated by the plan.
It is very likely that several states will make marijuana legal, and tribal leaders could beat them to the punch. Why is banning registration for everyone else to use?
Well, yeah, it's about the first mover advantage, so like.
They have, this part says they have the first one. Because when states legalize, this part is not about one thing.
Okay, one, if you're, it's the plan's trademark key for why it's key, is also applied to the tribe.
You agree with how to a single part about.
We don't think the disturbance 14 evidence is specific to lawful use.
Okay, and most of the parts about.
We think that the reason that lawful use would be good for them because of the reasons outlined in that call.
If you think that, but this part.
Okay, you are free to make that deficit in the 2AC, that's what a debate is
Okay,
for.
and again, impact part, nothing about like marijuana, why that's key there.
It's about the circular economy, obviously.
Why
It's
that act with that in terms of engaging with circular economy? Like this economy part says nothing about, what is the circular? Indigenous circular.
Like, we don't think there's a distinction between circular economy and indigenous circular economy. We think that the indigenous, like, the circular economy, like,
So why are indigenous people?
well, the impact is only about the economy.
You said it's status,
Status quo.
skip anything? Okay, let's go. Okay, where does this card for your call out better? Where does it say?
Sorry, our call out or whatever,
Procedural,
or call out or whatever. No.
where does it say it's designed?
Where does it say that Rotella is designed?
Just anything,
The entirety of the card talks about lights. Rotella,
it
and
doesn't say Zionist ones, right?
the bottom part of the card is literally talking.
One or one. It takes to overreach. Email agency. The Rotella procedure. The tactic. The expulsion council. The native stick. And the fault or. No, native. Yeah,
So one good research out about the wholesale status quo. Two, this is our argument. This research and innovation is high. The status quo would obtain commercialized because of black and trademark fees, interstate cooperation and interstate exchanges of weed trademarks can't happen. Yes, it is a good question. They perfectly have providing the drug resistant coaching. I think that starts there, even strong discount for a combination of drug resistance with engineering pathogen. And it's not our scenario, it's not an antibiotic resistant. We have pathogen contagion by a pandemic, which it's not our scenario. But we have been dropped our scenario that AMR is integrated to the microbiota, it collapses here, it's like, what's really ecosystem of the safety of my customer care. Evidence, yes, the black market is key, it's trying to the largest evidence for revenue source, they say trying to go to recall that's wrong. There evidence of any crimes in China, with the Chinese organized crime that operates throughout Southeast Asia, and in the US, it's off journal in the East Asian conflict, trying to go out of my states at night, what's up, and they say other plans all the radiation, that's another because marijuana is the only one that can be, but if no one wants to think it's very to solve radiation. Or back to the finish while they also dropped it solved in the winter. They say Trump yeah. If it's true. They say Trump talks about this CDC illegal stolen disease, that's wrong. That's uniqueness for us because it means that we need compound drugs to overall enhance our scenario is more about the healthcare industry being robust because it still responds to efforts to make a broad claim that we won't be able to respond. And our songs people in the US for a living, that's not enough. So we didn't read the one scene for 2 to 4, the scenario, so you should straight up close rate, we probably doesn't get them anything. It says that legal uncertainty is late into the status quo, but that courts are applying it at different levels. Our report card says that it applies to the NDCA, and their next part, their strategy report says that the law use requirement is being applied to the FDA right now. They say causes that's wrong. Those that are not reasoned by litigations occurring in the status quo trademark suits are the only ones. Why litigation over compound drugs are occurring against the disease. In fact, they constitute by collapse society and the transfer collapse society practical human sense are wrong. And there's which is old and doesn't do whole bunch of things. They say teachers cancer this is about animals that's wrong. Our evidence says that it can't even satisfy the humans. And it teaches involves fast it's fantastic. Cascade, eliminating humanity, that's good. I think the other two snaps are not going for a team. What are you doing? It's a fair comment. That's true. But someone take it for the other right. That's the ecos evidence actually talking right to recording New York. Coverage referring to there's That's self-described. One power for distribution of the plan has been predictability to space in the resolution, and that's to be clear for air obviously no control basically competing in terms of inherently arbitrary living, and it's clear that no person affect the future outcomes the value function be provided, reasonably sufficient ground maybe some of the burden of order, and you want to slow to check the card, not seeing that words that should be something to be fixed side all across like school family friends. That way it's pretty most voting issue. This part has been slowed on every NBA team with for the password permits, their novices and all varsity teams have hit NBA with this specific gap. They decided to use this in the settings of the NDCA and recommend Palestine as a way to ballot, not as a way to solidarity. Our emails from the wiki and the people to us, our coaches, or even told Raleigh who literally it's coached by your coaches, or to like isn't a Zionist, the hard so he's against Iran that with Israel, and used his core words to justify policy that is not that he believes in Palestinian genocide happening right now. One person willing to the place created the patient is going to alternative their community after but it all occurs to they have to do about external patient teaching two persons they go right. Especially for the patient play wrong people about the time all run out and comment the word for start back to value and something else how we can see about which are becoming about concepts and it's deeper creating more from us like for episode there that be not in topics of marijuana or four primary fields so you check the 1% everyone's an angel 5 for developing the population of all capital overwhelms the late 6 all failed age or more taken scribe or pressing off the burglary on public and collects aggressive writing public Tokyo Jake or deal to true or and over the going to all companies and lists of parties will teach you to listen to the minimum of control those series of work and information from our which might be released other countries they will have to provide the public enforcement while the insurance and power case revolution is unlikely and capital needs baseball or resolution of vaccine. Consultation for the six of strategy mitigation will soon elevate and see some comments to the bill, which will be strategy to change towards the growth of the long perspective travel, problematic, the construction of the economic and social revenue public succeed, will reduce public space commentation being over down the pyramid from certain level, dealing with space comments will be valuable over it's not shape only to be growth of the and external commentation will is not with the armies. Purpose of that we have today's technology numbers in order for all these generations that will be if we fail. Technologize and I've got number one problems with our results one frequent maximum in their class and addiction. YouTube fairness can be best ideas ever about the days. Firm vote, firm counter plan, firm to the plan and counter plan of other issues, firm to the plan of DYV, doesn't solve the applicant, doesn't cause innovation across state borders, doesn't solve the issue because it doesn't solve for the long use doctrine, but it does DYV, which is about legalization of something that arises from law for the local court. Everyone just saying that, it only violated the reserve law for ITV subsection, you see the law in terms of the responsibility of the department of in fact, before it comes out all across the state, I love people stressing the critical generating, then work with all the other pretty personal stuff, right? Even before you talk about second person data about that, this is how they said, I find it, there's some need for local court to address on everything with message about like, well, require a new law here. Firm to the act, the last line firm is plan for natives, firm to the plan, and you have to make modified from determination to prevent it to off ground and off the feet, the interest coming out, which is 23. But what's what I was about to sure you know, the next week, so the public supporting for me, one to square by the reason, repair, revive, and start those are not to get problems. Currently, and for certainly private costs, certainly outlaws, certainly coming by, lower cost more buyer service and cost and other actually coming as well by 400 later 23, should be 1.5 trillion, certainly about to look out for 60% more, 60% zero, there is a advantage of profits, and 5% the whole 15. We have to convert it to for years of using violent diversity, while it will be in hospital, the one that we can get teamwork, plus the review for example, version of the student, labor tests, from finish last part, backward online work, English research, full of reach around the issue, $5.7 billion, how to make this $5 million, and those were $7 billion. One from go to twenty up, like video for which data is very resource, literature, research, everything, even the government choice about the funding concerns, no make all the focus in the other side of the using the say after trying to change the organization of the theory, which people kind of work against all day, get short out correspondence, they just take months for legal, which is true that according to state the change, that goes against all the dead to be transferred to court speed, and full advantage too, because there's no backtracking, and it against all the environment in other countries, and the state trademarks, they also rank they're going to other
Native pick legalization stuff. This is not an add-on. I want to talk about tactic, the Hansen evidence. Why is an election campaign? Why do you think the whole?
Because the way to enact central planning would have to be an election, or if you just, the government change is fine. Then an aggressive right-wing leader then campaign and take over.
Right-wing leaders like part of Congress. Like leading part of Congress?
Like not current, like people get our capitalists down, wants to return back to the capitalists.
Okay, so your argument is that future congressional lawmakers will revoke.
Sure, we're not.
Okay, I want to talk about the baseball. Why does the alternative not solve this? What piece of evidence do you think you've read that the alternative does not solve education?
Because it explains that degrowth is insufficient.
Yeah, where have we defended degrowth?
Growth is key.
Okay, growth is key, i.e. like innovation, yes?
No, that's incorrect. Growth and the capitalist mindset is critical to space formalization because it incentivizes the tech and further development to go.
Okay,
Absent that capitalist mindset, you can't get.
Sure. I want to talk about topicality. The first we meet argument. Can you explain how this means that we want Congress?
It's kind of like a power.
So it's not.
Yeah, we need functions and kind of like find violation.
The state's counterplan or like consortium counterplan, the render evidence. It's just like the government will just hire people.
There are tons of options under state courts or under federal law where they can throw out.
Sorry, before you keep going, federal law or state?
Keep that extend the time of cases and prevent.
What do these things look like? Like what do these things look like?
Yeah, it looks like claim inclusion, issue inclusion, extension.
Why didn't these things happen during? Why didn't these things happen during?
They did.
Sure. I want to talk about the DCC preemption argument. why does this mean?
There's a conflict.
Yeah,
Kind of like this definition of interstate commerce, it allows for someone in like
okay,
Nashville to
Pause-
or something
pause
in
there.
Dallas. And
Pause
that
there.
is the
yeah,
definition.
pause there, there's no trading of like the actual weed across state lines. Why is it?
Oh, it certainly don't solve the app. Wow, because all the like C bars are different ones say interstate commerce, that's our
Right, right,
every evidence.
right, okay.
Rework evidence,
Warrant,
and
okay.
Barbara's evidence.
Why does the counterclaim not solve that warrant if the counterclaim recognizes trademarks and others?
Because our.
Why is it like physical trading?
Yeah, so advantage one, the premise of it, is that innovations exist now within states, but they're unable to be commercialized because of the lack of cross-border exchanges of marijuana products. The act allows that because it gives trademarks, which incentivizes companies to go to other nations and other states to develop.
Nine. No.
Okay, order is a consortium kind of plan, advantage two, then condo is on that. Or another? Okay. Stop the flood litigation on the federal level created by the annex is President Counterpoint is from Southern United States of the government with three branches, U.S. legal no data, U.S. changes the three branches legislative secretary to reject sovereignty to better for massive fairness, makes the a new recording now with the legalization from here. Can't remember if it's a year, but the study on the other those and definitely is intrinsic and will allow them to do a mechanism that was in the applicant. This is definitely not topical at all, and you should reject it because of the conditionality. They could say in context that the counterpoint that the plan does not legalize marijuana, nor did they explain how it would affect it. So it's not an effect to the plan. They just added something onto the plan text. So rejected for because it justifies that conditionality, and they can just add links that they want to see plan text in order to get out of office. It makes it literally impossible because the act is too rewrite the next get anything makes it 50 take bad, but Kevin is good until the next gets here from 50 take and there assault the applicant. That's best one. So the evidence checks the burden to the cut to the counterpoint, which actually that's part of the base. She's education federally saying how you're to the cover and close to the app every night. Like some script all you know the video for DSO. I'm just gonna research and for reciprocal idea. The video is the normal these actors every other video verbally about if application for stuff research for that reaction or 360 deficit testing. It got checked. There's a highly specific well research counterpoint with the net benefit internal link to our next is preemption, no link, but links back. The counterpoint doesn't regulate interstate commerce and only states specifically by the recognized trademark, but DCC strikes down the person in the world of the act. So because interstate commerce is still illegal federally, if you are in California, you cannot sell weed to a state like Georgia where weed is definitely illegal. That's all the case and not preemptive force. Clear states because they're relatively limited that emergency commerce and the extent of that also the other governors and they can do a lot of to make out their own these companies and stuff already advertised from apartment sense to people and not taking not the design setting and the other next is thinking next but that answers the preemptive stuff about the ICC and all of this stuff. I guess it links back to them, but they say this all the but kind of sausy her out where a person has to speak to your state trademark consortium that one has legalized state allowed trademark registration for, then it was a presumption that exclusive rights for those marks mirrors federal protection to recognize cannabis trademarks registered in other consortium states allowed brand recognition and rights to extend across state lines, which is they would say safety to their second advantage. We create an arbitration system for efficient resolution for trademark disputes. I mean, we do not go to the state court for existing state trademarks by not giving you registered priority over marks already in use. That's the one of the Jacob evidence. That's all we want innovation by allowing it to go within state framing issue. We finally got to the law of the act and process and commerce is still it's definitely still illegal as well. Yes, they don't legalize federal. They all we have to do is win the common stuff to figure out what they say, and it's all agreeing to predicated off the if you want to convert apologies and maybe some of them can get back on the advantage too. When he comes and said the mayor on the innovation allows us to develop new medicine. We're definitely solved for disease and cancer still because I mean we solve for innovation. As long as we solve for innovation, that means that there's no drug shortages because big pharma because they innovate them. Next is they say that we cause litigation, but the writer yeah, here evidence about state courts, but that doesn't matter. I'll just tell later. The writer is wrong. Open the fucking to litigation record. Cause is straight after cause issues and just preemptive to go back on other areas. So their doctors here for one person focus on paper for public that extent of cases here with for research specifically with on issues of research. So they use it for more important cases. The person here brings up a case and says that they're not allowed to what's only courts of litigation would like the time to consider that other lawsuits for other putting more time and attention to legal for other judges of use of power for determining a potential I don't think they regard more these units for reducing time and attention they have. If that's what's for straight off with other age research and judicial attention are limited by 13 and more circled with the growth of the case on the program extending is one of the office of management of these keep running from the some cases of mercy less attention than others officially judges are not going to change the sentence is not much time to decide to make things with me. Judicial attention is scarce research to do so researchers are finite. That's what now this is the reason the finite and the consider is limited at the end of every teacher needs another woman to live for talking about is there and no return arbitration is more efficient and costly long time out of state court hearings caused by the app definitely dropped by these reasons completely. Jacob 17 concept arbitration results in the state court of return of intrusion arbitration but the decision to say that the NDCA board of the company part of close arbitration of course happens to issue making challenges more accessible and issue arbitration by electricity to construction arbitration by out of state ordinary arbitration that be closer to the encourage the confidence of arbitration. PTO advantage. Collapse of disease response to the natural shock, trust attacks on public health has far greater effect on pandemic person, their extended internal link chain chart has fired over 1,000 days for filing agencies with Cronin, cut out entire branches of the CDC, including pandemic prevention cancer research, which is and impact disease spread is called our widespread education and public health does not temporarily localize our drug shortages because it's already here. We're not doing anything that the Nelson Rotten part. We already taken Trump definitely comes with more drug shortages and big pharma able to innovate be able to solve the drug shortages because all the other things are all causes that they wanted that drugs would not be spread to other places. They know because it's cancer, when it's addicted, when it's bleeding over, when it's something in its blood, and also species and violation outside public health, they're to justify. The way we criticize public health threats to justify Catholic property, and you all, your family and friends that have suffered or will suffer from nature and misappropriated research to secure them as an infection losses is despicable. This is an reason to vote no. You know, some of the anyways, team members would be able to stop us quick and then it has a case made and even legislatively large disease outbreaks are coming, but 25 and that's the predictions of the disease numbers and all this. It's definitely not uniqueness for them. It just puts their impact massively from the massive roadblock to the deeper ones. 124, there's someone and that's going to be a big reason because as they make this they should go back to getting a development in the U.S. healthcare system, discussing the last from the something as well as back to the whatever in front of us with the end you are and they're with the straight level of the virus that are going to be that much able to health authorities and also new person that CDC funding as well as the the disease and recommendations that was also and also solve the internal link that they isolated which is the healthcare robust system. Cancer cannot spread, it is not because of recommendations can have cancer goes on because not really fail and that's not a little body or their personally means to the health and mental definitions of there's a little only development of the skin we will learn that cancer is practically a very great reason you guys can solve the work that are possible to go to small have an other areas of the cell that are not organized or that even though one has cancer doing purposes because it really affects the that really affects the baby. Next is condom. Or cat. Condom is good until we get with the ones working innovation, all the training persons, but the decision on training, innovation under their input, choosing for processing, if not for the choosing is the real word, is doing something for some results, also the policy, asking for the ability to information for, next class, we adding for the reasons of our forbidden eyes, I'm saying returns on order, get what's where they are, with the theory, are applied, it's like, trying to trust you, never believe in the emergency, and super speed, and something that next, let's start around the reactor, because we personalize, it's already super high, excuse me, in the main direction, A, from the speed of that, information, and just to do with, there's a room which argument more than definitely review, 95, other the argument, and in fact, kind of page 10, because we know about that, along with the argument, and not me, so that A, or no, it's worth that, A arbitrary is no base for these, like so our office discourages new arguments and single refer to the straight terms. Logical policy everything always choose to go. Yeah, do you know what's on single read the replay that must do.
Yep. So it's that the federal government will approach state marijuana. Why didn't the current situation?
Also, first of all, it's great to the first amendment, but
I'm just asking about the approach that.
I mean, it's happening a lot. Like, if the plan is literally getting rid of the lawful use exemption, which in itself allows everyone to make marijuana trademarks at the federal level. That in itself is mooting state law because those federal trademarks matter more than state trademarks.
Wow. Is that sister counterplan if federal trademarks are more effective than state trademarks?
No, it's not a deficit in power plan. It just means it oversteps the existing regimes. Right now, like
I'm just confused, right? Because I think only applies to federal trademarks, and then states can still do whatever they want. Why is it an instance of state encroachment? And then if it is, then why are the states coming out and doing this consortium overwhelming and like currently vote not so?
I don't understand how it would be because it would still be unilateral, like it would be seen as unilateral. The federal and like state government
is going to be seen as unilateral. States just came out and all agreed with each other on this consortium. Why doesn't that look like the states reasserting their legitimacy and the federal government following them?
Fine.
Okay, the current law. The commerce policy. You said the counter plan does interstate commerce by allowing someone to register trademark in one state and then that gets applied in another state. Why is that not interstate commerce by?
That's not what we said. So first of all, the plan does not regulate interstate commerce. It creates a consortium, which is an agreement between states in order to see like that they would first respect the laws of the other states. So California would still not be able to sell weed, trademark weed to Georgia because it is illegal. That is still the scope. We preserve that.
some of these, you said recognize cannabis trademark registered.
Yeah, you recognize them, but you don't allow people to like.
Okay, so if I.
That's not legalized.
If I would trademark Tennessee, let's say it would be legal, and the use has one in Georgia, let's say it would be there. So a use and I have the same trademark.
No, because you, first of all, like that doesn't take into account the fourth plank, which respects existing state trademarks by not giving new registration priority.
Okay, let's say
You agree.
both of us filed for a weed trademark tomorrow.
Right, no,
And
this
we
is,
both get that.
first of all, state level, like state, what the state wants comes first. No one in this debate, and there's no world that is presented that legalizes weed. You cannot get a
Okay,
trademark.
let's say I used to live in California, I live in Colorado. He files for a trademark for marijuana, I filed for the same exact one, would we go there?
It would be respect, you would still respect the existing state trademark.
Second. I'll give it. Order is going to be the native stick. The procedural. The tactic.
So it's a procedural,
No, pick procedure.
big procedural, right?
Kind of good.
Big procedural.
Continue the purpose of competition theories and reasons to reject the argument on the theme. The add-on is only adherent to the counterpoint of the procedural. Concede that there's no spillover in this round, proves that voting us down in this round does not do anything. Also concede that rejecting the argument, not the team is key and also solve the RBI because they have posited the idea that we should not reject the team there because we could not email them before the tournament because we did not know until right before this round. Not a weapon station is about solidarity. If they prove they're part of that solidarity, there's no reason to reject the NBA. If it doesn't, they look back because they said that calling things out in debate is a weaponization. That means that no one will ever try and talk about Palestine in debates because they will always be told that they are weaponizing Palestine. Captain. QAC one of favorite counter interpretation values political strategies are social government planning against their endorphin capital as best. One capital ratio data. Plan folks narratives about mere corporates has shifted the same. Criticism as a stable framework policy leaks into debate space and forecloses. Capital sort of two critical thinking committee. Happy to teach one test. After teach better policy analysis by encouraging class. No act offense one, but no ground off to get away the app. And the links up from the one teaching prep to all they have to complete editorial control. And then this is more generic. They say growth sustainable. Capital extension try or die. Flips nag one. Food insecurity. Capital drive one. Coaches emphasize use that. Then food insecurity causes extinction. CM 8.1. A body of evidence including president and control the risk of one charge of security hospital WFD is not nuclear bomb later on. This representative for most project security has severe consequences. Including security right to nuclear war, even though I cannot clear that. Causing regional bills die. Two because of clouds, unaccounted right emissions are driving heat wave drive. Droughts, extractive practice including math pieces lost, or does it reach its physical biophysical 2.3? Trump caps them as enters final class. Second 411 liberation is not account for reading the part of the solution that are going to work out how from how market meltdown like causing the damage already been done solution help the effect also not to undo any damage of the old cause and also that seeming none of the stats was in their opportunity miles moment in which 50% the one class has been the one class has been focused on like the killing new system right the castles have been second to a point with already paradigms and again open door for something else but absolutely global so insisted that from now change when it comes to action take away from the solution system that became by the physical or that's what we heard for has nothing to do something better not going back on it's only 5 minutes something different about the emergent neo-fascism makes destruction impossible for having to survive the policy question cannot resolve the economic paradoxes it's evolved by not created by decades of neoliberalism that will be below they right, the right emphasis is wrong. It's the captain none of our warrants for collapse. We get no answers. Read the profit. Markets important. Markets expression the most important imposed by our countries and production by the body of the mathematical absence of the rest of the rate of production average rate of created by China. The next argument was that it's key to resilience. Their emphasis from the executive director of Breakthrough Institute obviously has essentially advocate for growth. 2, innovation from the alternative also solves every war here. 3, winning the wars above proves that none of that growth actually happens. They say no, like trademarks are a form of capitalist accumulation. Trademarks are about the capacity of value that the symbols that can produce for owners. The only protects big pharma companies. They've dropped every warrant for the link, which means no new one-year extrapolation. Tracy just said that it's not specific to their app. They say that the next argument was the private active fiat. We are not private active fiat. New answers and explain how we are, but reject the argument on the team. They say firm do both and don't find it fails one firm in terms of competition. 2, no double blind. Mutually exclusive. The alternative of also private property, including IP demand, cannot exist under it. Why 2022? IP given corporation of the control of the knowledge and space IP in favor of the number of problems wide and access to education. 3, rejects seven firms and interest permutation to make the firm the moving target. Thank not just thank office for voting for education and then fairness for at least a days. They punching drop the link, which means you cannot combine them. They say group next to arguments of transition wars and enhancement evidence. 1, no link, social planning time, build economy, localized technology towards well-being to government planning. There's no transition needed. That's the Lindsay evidence. And their interpretation of how this argument works is terrible for debate. They say that the future elected leaders in Congress would backlash against the alternative. We get the German fiat. The government endorses the alternative. 2, that's key to that ground and education and fairness. Also above 2, frame it sustainability. Being 24, expected restructured acting to interest, but capital alternatives more optimistic climate passion discarded. Practically will make the right choice. 3, pace no transition possible. 8, planning solved. Even if the transition words, they have not read evidence that says it goes nuclear causing extinction. Happening 19, and change takes place by class. 4th, argument to see the new scale organization will be movement. These various sustainable expos value condition on distributed. Is that even if the world will have to change, which is impossible. And B, mindsets already shifting, popularity transition is all-time high. Equals 3. Planted past growth is very around the found the 70% of support grows at 88% found always living well regards to income growth 70% of people have the being conscious of overhead putting a plan at high risk. UK groups of foundry cause competition. In this capital, market capital. The next argument, the argument was space colonization. 1, space disproven. Space actor COVID recession proves space development occurs during significant decreases, not growth. 2, socialist innovation solved. Social conflict of the USSR proves the proof starting off dirt war and burned to the ground by Nazis. They passed the US reaching goals at 10% annually, only class later because it's all decided for all the scientists. Go back to the consortium counterplan. The stern part is not applicable to the counterplan. It's not about consortium. There's no impact to deficit. There's no confusion because of consortium. Innovation is key is what we saw for cross by models. The emphasis have no deficit for why capital innovation and why growth is broadly is key. Their emphasis that degrowth would destroy the movement. Social innovation can still happen as long as because government would direct money and funds to that innovation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, first advantage, second advantage. Second advantage, okay.
Right, okay. Right.
That's their evidence says quote, narrowing the agency scope to only infectious diseases, which is a pandemic itself, so it's not our true way. Now, okay. Okay, continue on. That's not why it's not a response, it's not over, that's all about it. We're not going to do that. Framework by the benefits of permanence and if beyond it, and actually virtually isn't an alternative, there are terms on various other discussion lists beyond many products as you want, and until your ability to reunite you have to be available, please have no parts of the money space comes for once, leave your termination, two internally, one after. Do not particularly determine how the elements of different skills because the base of on two, the product of the assets are impossible, the product of the angels, like the bears, which are wasted with it, should be good. The most I go out in terms of cases, which no one's ever learned, and not the fair game, they say how those ratios that we don't raise the time, you can read it, but like so managed has to be look at the whole that's legitimate and competitive critical thinking you start by your which knows that learn on your game which you don't what you think you get right up to spit out all just that the option is like walk again let's share some approach to this prep yes all the well because you let's see who gives you a piece kind of right now that work you both solves that you replace by new chasing so the work is so we already also be the kind of comments counter structures of all type games in your team we can block so we get your answer one of the firm to the plan of all type game all either textually nor virtually intrinsically because it includes all my games plus by the game and by the negative words in space. Choose target out for flow also about sexual but issues set by the station is taking out on the aircraft information on the complex route in on the pieces on that on the aircraft in the level also it's not a deficit of course not education which the revolution obviously overcomes it and then things are kids and relevant to the word overcomes it all fails situation NDCA resolution with the possible pressing power relation to good military blocks and also towards the counter this new topics of no way to go watch out for the next social and so I'm changing the short time that's cancer and they're recorded and they can be recorded they can go courses because they survey only kind of series so I think and only like 80 of them so it's not sample that important season make sure it's more it's just they wouldn't be so bloody that I'm gonna try to not out and they start getting later I think the down is better for the anti-conference movement as well for people outside diseases so that's the communication. Or actually, kind of is not restricted to the negative for business and police officers instead of research and the frame issue. The truth seems utterly unflowing here. I know that we do not flow everything in the tweets. We have some leeway. I was earnest. I actually know that it's all about yeah, but what's something incredible shots here? Delete fairness innovation version is never but yeah, you're gonna be better or which means they will cross the draw makes famous words. After just point the point that sharp sheet is one of the agreement that allows rep to create first words watching strong because so many digital objects is a lot of the world thing what's not something that we share as kind of YouTube on key does out of the word. Again, taking care of this logic to advice. You said international product kind of less just goes all everything else. Except that they didn't really make an argument for here, so it's lots of arbitrariness. Two months old. The simultaneous consortium received from the States in conjunction with the federal crossings conceded the no results in currently also the second advantage as well. The feature disregarding law, even if the UC believes in taking words or one feature not care. And this approach involves that we use the only answer that it's only AMR internally and innovation, which is not internally. So the hospitals actually collapsing. This is making where the disease is spread. The state chambers fail their on enforcement comes on. Chinese innovations don't get that money. For riches that makes them ineffective them less trade that's started market from 40 kill children that's the case. That's one person the force of the board of the basic legal registration bill, under the charter of search the county, and undertake market. The small each business on the chair of sale on each and you could receive correction for the exam market, not clear in the show, synchronization commission. You guys want to restrict possible not because it says being still do, and then the list of the various regard players on the amount of restrictions right. Slightly below the practice of the event, and something right their right obligation. I'm going to determine this time, make the previous evidences that litigation increasing out, only gas all that locations are being like report, and the red hearing, engagement restrictions the issues will check the option, relegation that's rendering their is very simple. I'm going to turn for that determining the locations of the locations that are water and also consultation. That's not really regulated by any fact on the term press, not say every or they have now market. I'm going now the sugar berries. I'm going to say that they were covered from this class that was about relocation of the streets. They have process trade-offs around immigration to security for the fixes that are not. And then yeah, the living 13 that appreciate immigration to security policy criminal written classification of time and others mentioned should be required to take it up and others.
That math card is like. That was like. Yeah. You can, I can, you know. Yeah.
Taxpayers and then
We're playing top here, here.
the three timelines were going forward for three practices. They one time themselves all their applicants. The winner was not outletting conflict deficit that is unique to the role of the counterplan. Two, straight to the first advantage in the turn acts as a lord, portion of the second advantage that acts as a climate impact and as well as the other thing because all of it is key preventing the innovation is all key because we saw the innovation with it. And avoid the litigation of litigation turn, which means we saw the for innovation, which is the key internal to first advantage, which means we saw disease, which is the impact of the second advantage, even if they improve insulation, that is also defense to it. Three, we have enough defense on the terrible overreach advantage that can possibly outweigh the turn. And two, the framing experience one is the evidence of being severely outcarded in every portion of the debate where Spin should have given them past the card dog, but only we have specific evidence over the consortium and everything. These evidence they read is just about state trademark, so you shouldn't give them, you should give them less leeway on this and RNA, but use any risk. They count themselves a vast majority of pay, so any risk of their office should outweigh. We just have to find just for the risk of the winning turn and that's the reason that the firm lost to when the debate next first they take firm to vote, but first is linked to the benefit of the turn is about the flood of litigation on the federal level created by the plan. If we do all of the plan, that means that there are going to be trademarks at the federal level, which are going to that means there's going to be fine with the that means people go straight to that means that goes to the courts, so you should go for the counterclaim alone because the arbitration system alone avoids the litigation that benefit entirely because the state just go through the arbitration system, which means they just deal with the problems themselves and no the state courts or federal courts which avoid the courts entirely and we would risk it enough benefit don't risk it at all. So that's all that matters. And next is the stuff about the preemption. Recognizing first of all, we recognize the famous trademarks referred to other consortium states, which allows brand recognition and rights to extend across state lines. For a reason why there's no inter-province over marijuana because state has said it's illegal now. California, under their plan, cannot still sell weed to Georgia, and that would still be a problem. So the link to the SWO and to the app afterwards, but they also conceded the Lawrence part that even states should sign agreements with each other that would overcome the ICC policy. It doesn't seem to be it's the only evidence like in this debate, but it's literally constitutional and says that it's okay for the states to do so. They drop the evidence, so no new to our application because it'll be brand new. And then the page 20 cards is just about cross-border investment that shields investment, but it doesn't solve because it doesn't, the question definitely solves because it's just about state protection over borders, but doesn't take into account the Lawrence evidence or the one in solvency evidence about cards is literally the same thing because we're just default to people's original marks to solve. That was in project here. The first thing I said on preemption also would solve that because you would recognize their only legal states would recognize their other trademarks, but the government is also wrong for all the reasons above because it wouldn't be the same and there's no impact to the deficit anyways. It's about innovation. Next, the clause stuff, top level clause. These are wrong. You didn't get a period answer disappear in the 1 yard. Obviously, proven wrong about any amount of the fact. None of the arguments apply to trans case arguments. If the right about the courts would implement measures to prevent me from being heard, those cases be prevent all the acts. See that arbitrary disclosure cases or negative exemption. The California from Bureau evidence is some cases would have been prevented from the heart because the plaintiff is like no one thing happening. Doesn't punish those cases back. There will be another solve to give a guarantee that will also use for argument introduced not for the courts in the cases QG. The leading argument that despite management techniques such as only have so much here cases, the server is wrong. Every agreement in the card does not assume your amount of cases. Any is wrong because it's outlined or about to facts or not in dispute. And for most cases, it's not a single link that needs to be run on a real basis to be true. The rest of litigation, it's about initial litigation, not just re-litigation. Says that every dispute causes the levy. Wrong, double card is that these are some different cases that receive less attention. Found to protect the argument, not the team that protect the argument, not the team that prepared them. Also, the 1 AR afterwards, just evaluating no judgment. I just straight this up. He said, it said PAs and teams journeys and speed, but for crossing impact rate, time reports they were crossing to as much as if they were in quality nature, our suspicion never crosses out, way you think, and they say that stress is good, because, but next month, our ground is reactive, they next speed, personalized, and probably, it's super up, it's using their you find directions on the speed, equal playing field turns, and thing, and all sense of fairness, check backs, and Twitter, last definitely saw, but just always bad, they dropped the you can always choose to go, and that too is no solvency to read, like that must be from you, which definitely gets rid of it, onto the, and I know you heard that, because Max told me to be clear after that, next to the first extent, the, started card split, it says it flashes $1.7 billion from the ancient success, which makes it bad, but it's also about, putting cronies that control misinformation, they drop, that disease is controlled by misinformation, so the misinformation, when we have our opinion, the CDA controls how information is spread at all, which means that these spreads are there, but that still happen, because it's all about that, it makes healthcare collapse, because they didn't answer anything about budgets being cut, and that subsidies going to state and federal state hospitals would get rid of that completely. They only said things about fire and we'll give them that, but every other one was not.
Explain why litigation is key to our sort of links on advantage one, or they explain what impact you're going for on advantage one, which means that you can go on a high risk of kinetics effect, which is a starting kind of like a weird diabetic that I don't really know what it is. I don't know what the Trump cuts is wrong, or they're being overturning this because of any lack of mass, lack of power for his layout, workers institute reason for being fired. We're to Trump laptop that speech dropped. Their evidence even agrees with us. The wrong evidence says that the CDC is only being narrowed to infectious diseases, which is our argument. Either way, it's a high risk absolute for what drugs blockade allows for adaptants to be able to solve the next pandemic before it has evidence to form conclusion. There, since the CDC won't be able to treat people, but that's relevant to solving the next pandemic. I know I can get Max's valid here, it's bad, because straight terms are good, and two, it's bad, the two narcotics that fairness are ways, it's the only fact that violence is around Sullivan, in terms of progressing, because it's those that have learned in an on day, first one can get dropped in my company text, and all have a valid on the triad, because you know there's a risk our model shows fairness, and you know that their model doesn't at all, also really interest you and Apple, it's not our like whether we can read about how we can eat, once you get to the level of playing field, TDs and highlighting are all inevitable, don't affect contradictions against answers, problems, when it's solved side by side, companies be fair, all fact you, but I can find the topic no impact on that was both playing community. It doesn't make sense if the QC wants to do it, then they can, or they can stick with it. Yeah, I think you can think that you reach perfect here. Vertical so that I'm the internal limit, which is the 50 take all the avenues to the revolutionary for research and the program is to the power of all people, you share facilitate direction. No construction. This means you solve hard because there's a risk you solve as well that resolve litigation as well as the state for to be recognized everywhere. People take litigation to arbitration to see the counterplan. Instead of federal courts, you get to the right. This counterplan does not solve advantage two, it's related to advantage two. It's from the local use doctors application of Food and Drugs Act, not marijuana at all, solving advantage one. It's not sufficient. One is critical since that we solve for anti-venom resistance, not for other diseases that come from other areas like zoonosis, that they can only solve for antibiotic resistant diseases, not all diseases coming in the future, and they have not made that distinction. And our stereos on advantage one are about engineered pathogens and environmental collapse, are not our stereo advantage two, which is about kinetics, which is categorically distinct. I encourage you to read when you see evidence, so you find that the entire parts are for engineered pathogens and and for environmental collapse, not for kinetics that are coming in the sense and either way they can see the magnitude of relate that the drug system is physically key. So if they don't solve advantage two, they definitely don't solve two narcotics not either. There's actually the in the slow parts and one of your parts across the red, they aren't enforceable. Those state programs are not unenforceable under federal law. The different systems will show future use because they can be evaluated by different entities. There's no secret indication of the current regime, which ensures and voucher for investors, but Steel Person, Stern, Wells, and Hicks all go drop. They say state charge to trademark sold, but that's irrelevant because then the fact that you can have the same trademarks in two different states, you create a regulatory ambiguity which then disincentivize investors from pursuing innovations further. Additionally, the states have different requirements which ensures that people won't invest because someone who's a trademark in Massachusetts that has different requirements and rewards it for infringement than the trademark in Tennessee. They totally about if you can't go straight without even the off that litigation is fine out from space and cover satisfaction from unfair enforcement of the law use requirement. There's only a risk that controls floodgates for moving the law use requirement, making uncertainty that's even suffering, start control solves, missing a narrative here with the 14 litigation clauses coming days out, and reorder the funds elsewhere. They'll find charges for dismissing cases, which prevents criminalization from deterring innovation that's rendered so the proper other areas to redress backlogs, zeroing the impact, social security, immigration, and other criminal appeals are more likely than the travel law that's which will always give secure flood begin and secure, assume no area where they can trade off, which is patently false, and by their evidence, secure says they have the same resources for important resources, but they drop that there's less important issues in the app that become first. Levy does assume a large amount of cases kind of the overall is not the scarcity of usual resources, which assumes trade-offs. And the argument about California being illegal now and they'll do it in Georgia applies back to the California said that the trade-offs between Woodward in independent states and the petition vote definitely votes, firmly vote definitely solves and shields against this, that, both, and